Hello and welcome to today's Global Viewpoint. I'm Hunter Muller, founder and CEO of HMG Strategy. Thrilled, excited to be here with you on Friday. Hello, good afternoon to those folks in the East, and good morning for those folks coming in from the West Coast or the Central and Mountain time zones. I'm here with my good friend Clif Triplet. Clif's the Executive Director of Cybersecurity and Risk Management at Carney. Clif's had an amazing career, an unparalleled career. You should go on LinkedIn and check him out. He's been a great friend, an ally and supporter of HMG Strategies going on probably 18 years now. We met first in Houston when he was the CIO at Baker Hughes. And Clif's, you've had so many different roles within the IT industry. Too much to go into right now, but you're doing some amazing work with countries all over the world regarding cyber, helping them stay safe and secure. And the title today, Security Tomorrow, National Defense Leadership in an Uncertain World. Welcome to today's Global Viewpoint, Clif.
So, as Hunter said, over the last couple months for sure, I've been working with a number of countries around the world, and I started to see some themes coming out. About how each of them are seeing the world and what kind of actions they're starting to take. And Hunter and I talked about that briefly, and he said, hey, maybe I could share some of that with you today. And I think, it really begins, I think if anybody who watches the news understands the geopolitical situation in the world is very tumultuous right now, with events going on with Korea, China, Israel, Pakistan, India, I could go on. And with each of those, I don't think there's a country out there who's not asking themselves, wow, how we might be next. We might have to somehow get involved, or we are involved. And how should we better take a look at where we are today? And so one of the things they're all looking at is at the same time we see AI coming into play in a significant way. Okay, we think about how it's going to be really great for productivity and automation and process improvement, and as a nation state, use in critical infrastructure and new weapon systems. And I think they're all asking at the same time, this is one of the things where I kind of been getting involved in is, hey, as we look at the world with sophisticated AI-enabled cyber things coming, AI now becoming one of the weapons it should be in our offensive arsenal. This then brings up another issue for each of the countries is we are probably in many of these countries, and almost without exclusion, over-reliant on external nations for our technology and our capabilities. And it probably is a strategic question for each of them. What should be our sovereign capability? What should we as a nation be capable to do? In the US, we're pretty good about having an organic US-based capability development and management. But if you go to many of these other countries, especially smaller ones, say in the Middle East or Asia, they're not as mature. China, of course, totally different exception here. But a lot of the other countries, they haven't made the huge investment in sovereign capabilities. They've been relying on third parties, other countries supporting them. And now there's also a concern about intelligence. Okay, so how do we get the cyber intelligence? Because we've got to stay ahead of the game. But to get intelligence, we have to have a certain cybersecurity capability to participate in this global community. And some of these nations are not there. So there's multiple things going on right now that are saying, look, we want to play a greater role in the community, which means we have to have better security. We're thinking about getting into defense in a greater way, and we don't really understand what that means from a cyber defense or a cyber offensive capability. We need to do more sovereign capability. Which ones? And then is our nation even capable? Do we have the economy infrastructure, so to speak? And this often comes in the sense of people. And I recently was visiting a country and sitting with pretty much the top guy in the country on this topic. And we were talking, it's probably going to take him at least 6 years to build the human capital just to really get started. And then the question is, well, if we're thinking about we're not going to be really ready for almost 6 years on some of this stuff. How do we get started earlier? So then it becomes, well, we probably have to at least figure out the topics, and then we have to start talking about joint ventures on joint research, which then brings up the topic, what should we do research on, especially if we're looking out into the future? How do we attract partnership into our country, and then what it is that we're promoting in terms of infrastructure? So I've also been talking to countries about, new tax strategies, free trade zones, things like that, to encourage development. And how does cybersecurity become part of their economy? Because in many cases, it's not a current sovereign sector within there. It's all a bunch of people like US companies or Israeli companies or whatever showing up and delivering services and delivering technology. And they're doing a great job. But with the world being relatively fragile right now, they're not sure that that's really the right strategy moving forward, to be totally reliant on third parties. In some cases, only one nation for certain capabilities. So again, a very fragile cybersecurity component, which is, their protection in many cases for their economy and their infrastructure. So I kind of put together about 10 different little points, and we're not going to get through them all, but I'm quite capable of talking about it. But if there are questions, I'd be happy to take them at any time, but I'm just going to move through a few of these. One of the ones that's of great concern, particularly with the AI, is how it could be already resident in the critical infrastructure. And I think everyone pretty much believes it is true that in their critical infrastructure, laying dormant is malware. That, should there be a hostile event, somebody's going to flip a switch and some of their critical infrastructure is going down. A lot of the countries have started to think about, what should we create a defense industry? So I think, Japan's kind of getting back in the game, and I'm just using them as an illustration. And they're starting to build like a frigate and a fighter and some other stuff on their own. You see France doing stuff, Great Britain, everybody's kind of getting into game. But now they're worried about, how do we protect that platform, that military platform? Do we have the sufficient security controls and experience to secure that platform? The next thing is, which is even probably the greater concern, how do we secure the supply chain and the life cycle of that platform? Because for many countries, this is a new frontier. And they do look at the US, but what I've heard from many of the countries is, it's just too complicated. It's too much. We can't make the step from where we are to where the United States is. So what is the walk to go up there? And it obviously has to do with, what's the risk of the platform, what's their risk appetite, who they're selling the platform to or intend to sell the platform to. And one of the reasons they want to sell the platform is to lower their own costs by selling more scale. But there's moving into the other big topic here is, we've talked about AI being a major thrust. And I know you probably haven't been to a meeting where having somebody to talk about AI, but the new one coming out is digital twinning. And that is, how do we build one of these weapon platforms or systems without a digital twin to go through all the different options, the testing? We want to do most of these testings in math, maybe on a supercomputer, before we construct it and test it in battle, or say a crash test or something like that. Well, now if I'm doing digital twinning, basically everything about my platform is in this series of product development management or product lifecycle management tool suites. And now I got a really big vulnerability, because all my secrets are here. And if it were compromised and they do the typical kind of change, alter a variable, change a file, or just grab the whole weapons platform, which we saw happen on the F-35. We saw a great loss of IP on that thing. How do we manage the cybersecurity threats to AI platforms? We're pretty good on traditional things like how to protect SAP, Oracle, something like that. But when it comes to managing the reason for a hallucination, or the reason perhaps a model is drifting or biased, or how do we even detect it's been corrupted? The tool set in those areas of AI model management, protection, detection, alerting, SOAR, all that kind of stuff, much newer frontier here. And now you take AI and apply it to digital twin generations, which honestly, it's been going on for about 10 years, but it's now moving into every frontier. They don't even understand in some cases because the AI logic doesn't have the transparency it needs to understand what logic and data sets were used to create this design, this function, this code. And so how do we manage that? So this security of AI is now becoming a global national kind of issue.